So welcome to ORD Survey Webinar number 7. It's kind of hard to believe we've done 7 of these already. It's almost 2 months worth. We're going to continue with our mapping and point cloud workflows. For those who don't know me, I'm Jonathan Rawlings, and I work down in Geometronics in the primarily remote sensing group. Do a little bit of everything, kind of. Previously worked up in Region 1 doing lead surveyor for the field and mapping group up there, making lots of base maps. So let's get going. So all the topics that we've talked about are in red. So we're really kind of knocking these out. Last week, I went over the ORD survey workflows that are uploaded onto the EAST website and how to find those and how to find the recorded webinars, which are up on YouTube and can be linked through the EAST site. We also talked about our differences in our field book and our terrain data and how they're linked and interrelated. And then we looked at the process for taking an En-ROADS DTM to an ORD terrain. And I'm still working on getting that workflow finalized and out to everybody. But as soon as we do that, get it finalized, we'll have it up on that EAST ORD survey workflow page. And I've also got a terrain boundary editing workflow that I got to get up there as well. So stay tuned for that. It is coming. Today, we're going to talk about, we're going to discuss the reality modeling tools, which was otherwise known as Descartes in V8I. We will also discuss the ODOT survey ribbon again. I know Kevin's already discussed it before, but we're going to do it again and show how to use it for 2D mapping from point clouds, as well as how to use the TopoDOT seed file and TopoDOT tools for your 2D mapping. And then we have, I've got 4 more topics listed on there, but we've got a whole bunch, many more than that. So reality modeling. So in V8I, we were all pretty used to Descartes, most of us. It has now changed the name to reality modeling. The Bentley point cloud format is still the same. So if you want to attach point clouds in ORD or Connect in MicroStation, you still have to convert them to a pod file. So if you grab an LAS from our statewide mobile scanning, you're going to get it in an LAS format, and then you can convert it to a pod if you want to work with the reality modeling tools. You can still open and convert the same file types as you could in V8I. So if you have aerial LiDAR, which typically comes from Dogami, it's going to be an LAS, you can convert it. If you're working with the Leica static scanners, you can still convert the PTS files that we've historically exported from Leica Cyclone and our E57 files that we've not historically exported from Cyclone, but we're going to start using more and more due to our use of TopoDOT. So that's another whole webinar. But so all that's still the same. There is what I think is a bug in our Connect and ORD. And that is that you can no longer easily reproject your point cloud files when you import them. So in V8I, you were able to set your source geocoordinate system and your destination geocoordinate system, and you could reproject a file. So if your statewide LAS file was in OCRS Portland, I'll use that as an example. It was collected in OCRS Portland, processed in OCRS Portland. Whenever you converted that LAS to a pod, you could go to a different coordinate system right then and there when you converted it. You could go from OCRS PDX to OCRS Gresham Warm Springs, which is something we did quite often with ours. With ORD, that is no longer possible. So the button is still available whenever you want to set this source geocoordinate system, but it does not do anything. It will pop up with this dialog box down in the bottom of your MicroStation window or ORD window that says it's not possible to override the file geocoordinate system. So it's a little bit problematic because 95% of all the LAS files we have, they don't have the correct coordinate system listed in the header. So there is a workaround in ORD, but it is pretty messy and it's easy to get things confused. So I'm going to recommend you not do that. I'm not even going to talk about it today. But the safest method is to go back and use Geographic Calculator to reproject it. Or you could probably even go back to V8i and use the tool like you see here, where you can actually set that source GOCS. We are going to have, in a few weeks, Rhonda is going to do a presentation on the status of statewide scanning, where we're at with that, and some changes that we've done this year, and how to use Geographic Calculator to reproject those files. So if you don't know how to do that, that's going to be coming down in the future. You can still adjust your displayed point density and point weight dynamically, which is something that's useful if you're working with static scans a lot and you get a lot of density around the static scanner. You can manipulate those that density, which is this one right here, on your display properties, and make that more dense or less dense. You can also set the weight of your points. So if you want your point, your points are typically pretty small whenever you bring them in. If you want to make them a little thicker, maybe you're viewing them in your cross section, you can still do all that. And another bug that we have found with ORD and Connect is that whenever you are using the reality modeling or Descartes tools and using cross sections, they're very sluggish when you're moving forward and back with the presentation dialog open. So there is a workaround, and that is to close your presentation dialog and assign key-ins to your keys. I like to use function keys, and then you can use those function keys to move your sections around. So I'm going to do a demo on all of these tools and where they're at in a bit. Where are the tools? So as with everything in ORD, there are several different places where you can find your tools. So in our reality modeling workflow, we have, of course, our different tabs. Most of the tools that we're used to using are all in one spot on the Extract tab. So on this Extract tab, I've got my reality model presentation dialog box that we're used to seeing, where you can see your presentation styles. You can see your class definitions. You can create sections, create clips. If you're using model by section, you could do templates. We've also got additional buttons for a lot of these. So I've got a button for create quick section. I've got a button for create section wizard. I've got a button here for snap element. And then we've got our 3D line following tool over here under our point clouds grouping. So those are kind of the main tools that we've always kind of used in V8i if you did a lot of point cloud mapping with Descartes and V8i. So let's go to Open Roads file here. And I want to point out let me pull up some notes here. So let's go and look at the reality modeling workflow. So, you've got your workflow dropdowns. I don't like to use this. I have my workflow menu pop up in my quick access menu, so I'll be using that. So under that, these are exactly the same. These two are, one, I just have to scroll to get to things. This one I do not. So I find it pretty handy to use the workflow menu pop up in my quick access toolbar. So under that workflow menus, I've got my reality modeling. So the reality modeling is really a combination of tools for not only point clouds, but meshes, scalable terrain models, and raster images. And one of the things you'll see as you look at these different tabs is that some of them, well, not the view one, the attach one, Notice this one has a grouping for point clouds. It's also got another grouping for reality mesh, and another grouping for scalable terrain models, and another grouping for rasters, and then even references. So it's kind of a combination of all these different things all under the one workflows. So some tools will work for reality meshes, some tools will work for scalable terrain models, as you'll see. So we've got our standard home tab with our primary groupings, with our reality model presentation box. I can click that and it opens in my other window, of course. And this is pretty similar to what we've always been used to with V8i. So we got our presentation styles, class definitions, we've got our sections, we've got clips, and if we're working by model by section, we've got our templates that we can create, and of course our model by section. So I'm going to go ahead and dock this just because I like to have my stuff docked with tabs, just to keep things nice and tidy and not floating around. So under our home tab, we got our presentation box that I just opened. We've also got our section tools, so I can drill in here and do a quick section or a section. So if I do a quick section, that's what we're kind of used to. If I do a section, I've then got the option to do it along path vertical or horizontal. So that's really the difference between a quick section and a section. Is with a section, you've got a wizard that you go through where you can select an element to work through that. And then you've got your attach tools, so I can go attach my point clouds, my rasters. So I'm not going to get into that today, but just point clouds. If I select that, again, I have these docked at the bottom, so they automatically pop up, so I don't have to go up to my workflow ribbons to do that. So I can go into my pop up here for my point clouds, and that's docked there. A handy thing is you've got your coordinate system here on the geographic grouping on your workflow ribbon on the home tab. That's another thing that I have in my quick access toolbar for easy access, because I'm setting it a lot and maybe changing it from time to time. And then you've got all these other standard tools that you have on all the other home menus. So if I go to my view tab, it's again similar to most of the other workflows. And then the attach tab, as I pointed out before, I've got my attach point cloud. So I can go directly to this attach tab and attach point cloud. And notice it kind of bypassed, when I did that, it bypassed this point clouds pop-up. So I'm gonna have to cancel out of that. So it didn't pull up this point clouds pop-up when I did that. So if I wanted to avoid that for some reason, I could just go to the attach and attach point cloud. I've got it here. I'm used to doing it this way. That's how I typically do it. Of course, you can detach it as well. You've also got your options to do your clips and delete clips. And then reality meshes, we're not going to talk about. Scalable terrain models, the rest of these we're not going to talk about. Under the Analyze tab, again, you've got a couple of things here. This says for reality model, which is probably covering everything from our scalable terrain models to our reality meshes, different things. You can do your quick section and your section from here. You've got some other options to work with it. The retouch tab, the ones that we would use most with point clouds would probably be, of course, the reality model presentation dialog box. That's like the third time that's popped up so far. And this edit classification, if you want to get into that. So this is something we could do in V8i as well. I don't think we did it much, but you can change the classifications using just standard MicroStation tools. And the extract tab is where most of the goods are, I think. So again, we've got our reality model presentation group. I've already got it open and docked, but we have our model by section. We have our section tool. We have our quick section. Ground extraction, which is a new tool in ORD and Connect that will work through your point cloud, and depending on the settings you have, will give you a ground classification. We have our drape element, and then we have our snap element. Again, we got a reality mesh tool, scalable terrain model tool, another point cloud tool dialog box with our edit classification, and then our 3D line following tool, which we used mostly in V8i. And then some other tools that we didn't use a whole lot, nor do we use, or probably we will not use in the future much. So mostly for, I think, more like building information modeling type scenarios. So as I said, we can still do, you've got the buttons here as well. So if I want to do a quick section, I can go do it on the button. But I've also got it in my reality model presentation dialog box. So let me load up a point cloud real fast. Again, I could go to my attach point cloud, or I can go to my point clouds box that I have docked here. I'm going to attach a LAS file. And in earlier in one of my slides, I showed that you can no longer reproject files like we could in V8i. So if I had this in, let's say it's in Columbia River East, I know it's in Columbia River East, and I want to take it to Columbia River West, I can't do that. It's not reading the header information correct in that LAS file, and I can't click on that button and it won't do anything. If you notice down in the bottom, it says it's not possible to override the file GOCS, the coordinate system. So if I wanted to do that, I would have to do it either in a V8i file or in Blue Marble before I even imported it. So go ahead and say OK, and it's going to convert it to a pod file. I'm going to give it the same name. Go ahead and hit save. So my point cloud has imported into my ORD file, and it imports on whatever you have set as your active level and settings. So if I select this and go to my properties, it should be on my default level with the color, line, style, and weight all at 0, which is what I have set as my active settings. And I can go in and just change this with it selected. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at default for now. But I've got these standard, the tabs like we've always been used to, so I can go in and change my RGB color. So I can apply it to open views, changes it, intensity. Notice I've got my RGB values from the camera on the scanner. I can set my intensity values. It's currently at grayscale. If I want to set that to hue, I can do that. I can look at it by elevation, change my contours maybe that I view it by. And I can just work through, I can turn on and off classifications if I want to do that. I believe this is classified. It is classified. So I can go in and turn off my undefined classes on there if I want to do that. So that's nothing new really from V8i. I can also go do sections. So let's say I wanted to do a section. There's a power line right here. Let me change that back to RGB. There's a power line right here. Maybe I want to cut a cross section through that power line. I can go to my sections tab, do a create quick section. I could also go up to my buttons up here, do a quick section. I can set my different settings in here. Again, nothing new. Maybe I'm going to leave that at 10 feet. Nothing new if you've worked with this in V8i. I then get my view 2 of that cross section. I'm going to go set these side by side by going to my view window, my view tab, my tile window. Maybe I want to modify this section. Maybe I didn't get it thick enough. I can go do that here. Set that to maybe 20. I can change the presentation style in this section using my reality model presentation dialog. Maybe I want to see elevation in this view. Instead of using this apply to open views, I can do apply to selected views. And now I've got RGB here and elevation over here. Or maybe I want that to be intensity. There we go. I can do clips. So again, I can also do this from my attach tab, I can go do a clip, or I don't like having to remember which tab it's going to be in, so I just use it from the reality model presentation dialog and go do a new clip here. Say I wanted to isolate these wires away from everything else, I can still do that. Just like, and we could do this in V8i too, so nothing new here. So I can right click. It's going to think a little bit and clip all that data out. So now all I've got is all the wires above in that scenario. So that is the kind of where the cart tools were, reality modeling tools are in V8i. They're all still here. They've even got some new ones. We've got that ground extraction, and we've also got a tile point cloud. So if I have time at the end, I want to jump through or walk through tiling and some of these other tools, but I really want to get to the 2D mapping. So I know Kevin has mentioned the ODOT survey ribbon and how it works, but I'm going to touch on it again because it is important whenever we get to the 2D mapping and how you want to go about extracting those features. So the ODOT survey ribbon is different than the survey ribbon that we're used to. So the survey workflow, of course, has the ODOT ORD tools for working with the field books and terrains. The ODOT survey ribbon workflow has the same functionality as the ODOT task ribbon that you used in V8i when you were extracting features from the field book. Except now every feature has a field code assigned to it and an element template. So in V8i, this wasn't the case. We had quite a few surface features that did not have the field codes, and it created some issues when you mapped from the point cloud. So we've now added field codes for all of those features. And in V8i, we also had two different sections for mapping existing features. So we had one that was titled existing, and then the other was cloud mapping. And the separation has been done away with since you can really put all of our features you can really map all the features from the point cloud if they're visible. So on the ODOT survey ribbon, at the tab level, there are 4 different divisions of features, and we've tried to group them in a way that minimizes the shuffling between the tabs as much as possible. So we've got our roadway traffic terrain, we've got our bridge, railroad geo, our vegetation and landscape, and then our utility hydro. And then under each of these tabs, we've got additional groupings underneath each one of these. And we've really tried to group these so that there is kind of minimal shuffling between them. But whenever you select these feature buttons, so like here I've got asphalt edge selected, it will assign the element template and attributes. So the element template contains a level, color, line style, and weight that we see here. And the element template being assigned to a feature is important because it's what links the feature to the field code. So if you are importing field data, you are importing data with field codes, and the feature is linked to an element template. If you are using this ODOT survey ribbon, the element template will be assigned, and it works in kind of the reverse method to assign a field code when it imports the graphics to the field book. So I'm going to try and point this out with a demo. So let me quickly do a demonstration of I'm going to delete this clip. Do a demonstration of the ODOT survey ribbon. So in my ODOT survey ribbon, like I said, we've got 4 main tabs here for mapping existing features. We've got 3 new ones for right-of-way stuff. I'm not going to touch on that. Kevin may touch on it over the next 2 weeks, but not today. So if I want to extract something that is related to the roadway, the traffic, or the terrain levels, I can go to this tab and select a feature. Let's say I wanted to do asphalt edge. Notice my attributes currently and my element template is set to none. right here. When I select this asphalt edge, it automatically changes that element template, sets the level, color, line, style, and weight. And I can just go in here and draw a line. And it's going to set all that on it. Notice when I select this feature and go to my properties dialog, that element template is assigned to that line as roadway edge asphalt. I can drill into that element template and look at what all information it contains. And it is the level, color, line, style, and weight. So that's all. So if I want to go look at my feature symbologies and feature definitions, let me check something real fast. Yeah, I did not talk about this, did I? I should have. So this, you shouldn't really have to do what I'm about to do when you're working, but just so that you have an understanding of what's going on. And I know we talked about this in the initial training, but the top image shows the dialog for the edge of asphalt element template with the level, color, line, style, and weight defined, which is what I just talked about. The element template is linked or set to the feature symbology, which is shown in this lower left image. The feature definition is on the lower right image, is linked or set in the feature symbology, and is also where that field code is defined. So when you import field collected data from an external file, such as a CSV from Infinity, you're importing data with those field codes. Everything is linked together. It's got the field code, and it's, in my mind, it's kind of working back through the feature definition, which has that feature symbology going back to this element template. Whenever you're using that ODOT survey ribbon, you're selecting that element template, and it's kind of working in this manner. So you're going from the element template to the feature symbology to that feature definition, which then assigns that field code to it. So we're going to, one of the methods, and all this is linked to the 2D mapping, because one of the methods we're going to use to get some of our mapping into our survey field book is features from graphics, which uses this. And there's my demo slide. So let me go back here to my ORD file. So I created this EP from my ODOT survey ribbon, and it assigned that element template to it. But I do not have it in I don't have a field book. And if I go look in my Open Road standards, I've got my library, but then I've also got my standards for this file. I can't get to any of my feature definitions or feature symbologies. There's no drop downs for these because I haven't actually added this to my survey field book. So I'm going to go ahead and add it real fast to my survey field book and show you that connection between the template and the feature definitions and the field code. So let me quickly create a new field book. And I'm just going to import my features from graphics, and that's going to import any feature that is in my model and that has a template assigned. If I have a feature in here that does not have an element template assigned to it, it is not going to import into my field book. So to use this method, you have to have the templates assigned. So I'm going to right click on that field book name, do an import features from current graphics, and it's going to import everything in that model that has a template assigned to it. And it takes a little while on the first one. I've done this in a few webinars now, but once you do the first one, it doesn't take nearly as long. So, and stick with me. Hopefully this will all come into clarity with the 2D mapping. So I now have an EP in my survey field book as a graphic linear feature. So I can right click on this, go to my details. This EP is in here as a graphic linear feature. Again, if you're doing 3D work, This is not the way to go about things. It has its disadvantages for 3D work. I can also hover over it, and it shows lower right, that creation type of graphic right there. So now I can go back to my ODOT standard or open road standards. Again, this isn't something you would do all the time. I'm just trying to point out how these are connected. So now I've got this into, I went from an element template to a field code in my survey field book. And it did that by going through the feature symbologies. That's a roadway feature symbology, edge of asphalt. So that feature symbology, again, is assigned an element template. It has a default element template, which we assigned with our ODOT survey ribbon. And that feature symbology is linked to the feature definition. So I can drill into my feature definitions, drill into roadway, find my edge of asphalt. So that feature symbology is linked to this feature definition, and it's also got an alpha code, which is how it's getting into that field book with the EP alpha code on it. If I go hover over this, notice my field code on there is EP for that feature. And it is in my field book as such, field code EP. So 2D mapping, how do I go about 2D mapping in ORD? So you've really got to ask yourself a couple of questions. So you're going to be working with point clouds most of the time. And if you are working with point clouds, you must use a 3D seed file. You can't work with point clouds in a 2D seed file. Nothing new. Same thing with V8i, probably every other program. But which one? Because we now have two different 3D seed files. So we have our seed TopoDOT and we have just our regular seed 3D. So you have to ask yourself two questions. Do you want to use TopoDOT tools and export a CSV file of your mapped features? If so, you need to use that seed TopoDOT.tgn. If all you want to do is extract graphics, you don't want to mess with TopoDOT, and you don't want that CSV file of your mapped features, then you can use just that seed3d.dgn and your ODOT survey ribbon. So, and I'm kind of considering this method more of what I would consider manual mapping. And it's often how we did things back in V8i before we had TopoDOT. And I'm going to do kind of a demonstration of both this manual mapping method and the TopoDOT method. So with manual mapping, you, again, will use your ODOT survey ribbon to pick your feature. You're going to just manually place the feature. And we've got a survey tools group on our ODOT survey ribbon that has a lot of the commonly used features. So you're not bouncing back and forth between different ribbons trying to find a tool that you need. So this is really pretty handy. Once you've got your features placed and mapped, you can set all their elevations to 0. And then you have to decide if you want to put it in a field book. If you do want to put it in a field book, you can import your features from current graphics. One of the benefits of doing that is it creates a backup of your features, and you can also share it as an SQLite file. So you can export that field book as an SQLite, give it to somebody else. They can merge all this stuff together rather than doing it from a graphical DGN. There are a couple, kind of, I guess, I don't know if it's a bug or if it's the way they've designed it, but if you do use B-splines for your 2D mapping, which I know we did quite often for curves and different things, they will not be saved in the exported SQLite file. I haven't been able to find out why. Just know that if you do use those, you probably maybe should not go this method. You can, however, if you still want to go this method, you could export to your DGN graphics from the field book to create a new DGN file with only your graphics and without your field book. If you don't want to use a field book, you just want to keep your features as graphics only, you can still share that DGN with your graphics, but if your graphics are ever accidentally deleted or your file gets corrupted for some reason. You may lose it all, depending on the size of your project. That, may be a big deal. If you can also use that file export to export your file to nothing but 2D graphics. And we talked about that in the initial ORD survey training as one of the deliverables that you could do as well. So let me go ahead and do a demo of this. So I'm going to create a new file. And I have decided that I am not going to use TopoDOT. Maybe I don't feel confident enough in it. So I'm going to do a new file and only use the Descartes reality modeling tools. Maybe do some manual extraction. I'm going to call this so in this case, since I'm not going to use TopoDOT tools, I don't want to really get that external CSV file that's got all my features mapped. I can just use my standard seed 3D file. I'm going to go ahead and open this, save this file. Seems like it's loaded. I'm going to attach a point cloud that I want to work with. And I had already created that pod before. Just going to load it up. Set my presentation style to what I like to use. Some people like to use RGB for some of this. And again, this is only 2D mapping, so we're not concerned about elevations. You can snap to things, but we're not totally concerned about it. So I'm going to use my ODOT survey ribbon to extract these features manually. So I'm going to start out with my striping. We have two options here, triangulate, do not triangulate. If we're not going to a field book, it doesn't really matter on what we use. We don't have all of our striping in the do not triangulate dropdown. But you can get everything from this. But if you're not going to the field book, it doesn't matter. And you can modify all that once you're in the field book as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my white stripe. So let me select this solid white. So I'm just doing a manual extraction here, snapping to the point cloud. So notice it set my template for that. That line has the correct template on it, all the right symbology for delivering to somebody. And it's on this traffic roadway striping level, which is what we would want to deliver it on. I can then go select this. I could do my other white stripe since I've already got it selected. Since my template's selected, I can just go grab my smart line under my survey tools and extract that line. And if I want to go do that double yellow, I can go change my template using my ODOT survey ribbon. It's supposed to change. I'm pretty sure I clicked that. It's thinking. Okay, notice it changed my template. Go select that and map out my feature manually. If I wanted to use my Descartes tools, I could. So it's a little bit cumbersome jumping between this ODOT survey ribbon and my reality modeling ribbon. So one of the common tools that you're going to use is, of course, sections for some of this, maybe for maybe EPs or different things, or I don't know, some of these polls and things. You may use sections to get those if you need them in 2D. So you've got that in your reality model presentation. What you don't have is your 3D line following. So I can go put it on my quick access toolbar. I'm not going to do that today, but you can, because I'm going to be short on time. So I can go grab my 3D line following tool. And with the Descartes tools, you're not able to set the feature element template, the element template in the actual tool. Whatever is active is what it is going to extract. So if I want to do another double solid narrow, I'm good because that's what my element template is set to. So I can go do that. It's not going to work on that very well. So let me go change it to white. So again, this is where I'm saying it would be convenient to have that 3D line following tool if you're going to use it up in your quick access toolbar. Go set this back to solid white and then go back to my reality modeling workflow, to my extract tab, to my 3D line following. See how well this works. Oh, it worked pretty well. So it extracted a line there on that with that element template assigned to it. I lied to you. It says none. Interesting. I'll have to look into that and see why it says none. I could have swore I've done this before and I had it on an element template. What's that?
You could assign it now.
I can, yes. So I could drill into this and try and find it. I can have it selected and also go back to this ODOT survey menu. That was white striped, so it's under striping. It's solid white on that, and notice it updated the template on there. So that was what I was going to show you next. I can just put these in on default, and let's say I had 2 white stripes here. I could select them both, and then just go up and select that particular button or template for whatever those are. So if I had this yellow skip left, I could do the same there. So if I've finished with my extracting of features, I now have to decide if I want this in a field book or not. Before I take it into the field book, though, I'm going to set all of my elevations to 0 because I don't want to pass this on to somebody and them think it has good elevations. So to do that, I'm going to just turn off my point cloud in this view. View 1. And I don't know why it does that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this line. We're going to work with something smaller here. So I've got my my 2D mapping extracted here. I'm going to select it all. And the easiest way I know to find this tool is to use the search ribbon. And I type in set element elevation. Of course, if I go hover over that, it tells me where it's at. Just going to use that. And it pops in. And I can set my elevation to 0 on all those features. And I left click. And now all of those should be at my 0 elevation. And they are. So I now have to decide if I want to put this in a field book. Am I going to be sharing it with other people? You know, I can just share this DGN file with other people and they've got it. But if somebody were to accidentally select everything or select certain features and delete them and not realize it, we don't necessarily have a backup of that. So if I do want to pull this into a field book, I can create a new field book here. I'm going to call it 2D mapping. That would let me do it. JR, because maybe there's 3 or 4 people working on this, if you're lucky. And since these have element templates assigned to them, I can right-click on that field book name, do an import features from current graphics. Nothing. So I've now got my all linear features, my 3 different linear features, 2 different field codes. I'm going to put up my survey details that's in there. And because they are graphic features, I do not have points. I have only got a graphic linear feature here. So that's why I have no point features in this. And I can share this, so I can export it to my Bentley survey format. And I'm going to give it the same name as the field book. And then maybe I've got someone else working on another file in some other location. They can then export theirs as an SQLite file, and I'm going to go create my working file, that I'm going to combine all this together. I'm only going to do it locally, but I would call this my SK, I know what key number this is. This would be my working file, and project-wise, maybe it's the second file I'm creating. And I'm using that seed 3D. Go ahead and say open. I can now merge those different SQLite files into my survey field book. This is something you should be somewhat familiar with. And if I had another one in here, which I do not, it would show up as well. Notice, however, when I've done that, I don't have any linear features. So it brings the graphics across, but it does not actually put them in your field book when you import it. So I need to right-click on that field book name, import features from current graphics again. And if I had multiple SQLite files that I was merging in together, I can then export that when this finishes. So I've now got my linear features in there. I can then export this field book. They're all at 0. I can export to the DGN graphics. Give it a file name. And I probably should have named this one the eWork 02, because this is the one, actually no, I would name this one the eBase 02, because this is what I'm going to have that I'm going to deliver to the other, to put up in my project-wise base folder. So while that's thinking, seems to be taking longer than usual with the team sharing. That's how to do the manual method. So if you want to do the TopoDOT method, you need to initially use that seed TopoDOT DGN. You're going to create this 3D mapping working file. And what that seed TopoDOT .dgn seed file does is it gives you access to the field code levels that you're then going to use with the TopoDOT tools. It's really just a throwaway file, this initial file. When you're done with it, when you extracted all the features on those field code levels using the TopoDOT tools, and you've used TopoDOT's feature code export tool to convert those graphics to a CSV, you're really kind of done with that file. You don't need it anymore. I would keep it, but you wouldn't have to. You're then going to create a new file using the seed 3D, and that would be like your working file that we created earlier. And this file will not have the field code levels. It's only going to use those standard ODOT levels, but you've got that that CSV file that you've exported from your feature code export tool that you're then going to create a survey field book and import that CSV file into that survey field book. And it's going to create those dynamic link features on your existing levels that you would want to deliver and put up in your base file. And again, you can export that survey field book as an SQLite if you want. And then you would export the field book to the DGN graphics for delivery without the field book. So then that would be your base file. One of the things you're going to have if you do it that method, since you do have the dynamic link features, is you have those survey point locators that you'll need to delete out of there because you don't need them. You just need the graphical features. So I'm going to do another webinar on this one, I suppose, on this method, because we are about 5 minutes out of time. And I had a lot more to get through. Let me see if that file ever exported there. It did. So now I just have a file with just my graphics. So no survey field book. No survey field book in here. Just a file with my graphics, all at 0. They're all on the right levels. And that's what I would have as my base file. All right, we're at the hour mark. So if you have any questions, certainly feel free to Teams message us or give us a call or send us an email or whatever's easiest for you, and we will help you out. So thank you all.
Thanks, John.
Mm-hmm. Have a good Labor Day weekend.